Happy Tuesday, troops. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. Today, we're going to talk about some confirming things going on in regards to Altseason. What we're going to be doing is starting off with an old chart that's been around for a long time, and it is labeled the path to Altseason. We've looked at this on a number of occasions. It starts with Bitcoin in phase 1. Phase 2 is Ethereum. Phase 3 is large caps, and then we have phase 4, which is all out alt season. And we are currently transitioning from Bitcoin, which is the tide that rises and sinks all ships, into phase 2, which is going to be led by Ethereum, the kind of king alt, if you will. Now, I think Ethereum is personally like Yahoo or AOL in regards to the internet and the kind of growth that we saw. You know, it led at first, or they led at first, and then it was overshadowed by other tech companies. I think other DLTs will outshine Ethereum. You guys know I'm a big fan of HBAR and various others, because they're just, in my opinion, better. However, Ethereum, for all intents and purposes, is still in that number 2 spot. It has that network effect. And I think it's going to do very well. And what we're now starting to see, confirming really the flow of, or the kind of path to alt season, is major companies around the world pivoting into it. In fact, over the past 24 hours, we had Paul Brody, who's the Ernst & Young Global Blockchain leader, essentially comment on this exactly and kind of confirm what it is we're thinking about. And then we also had Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, also mention a similar thing. So what I want to do, guys, is dive into both of these clips. Then we're going to look at Ethereum. We're going to look at and go back to what we looked at yesterday, which was CoinShares' weekly report that sees Ethereum basically rivaling flows that we've seen with Bitcoin. This, in my opinion, is confirming the path to alt season. And we'll also look at the Ethereum chart, which very much is just doing exactly what Bitcoin did in 2020 before it went on a monstrous rally. Ethereum is in the exact same position, and I think we're going to see altcoins outside of Ethereum really outperform it. But the important thing is to focus on Ethereum kind of triggering that more broader alt season. Let's dive into these clips.
Investors have been sitting on the sidelines. They've been looking at this marketplace for a long time, both Bitcoin and Ether, and especially stablecoins. They've wanted to get into it, but they've been nervous about the regulatory environment, especially here in the United States, because we've been lagging for the last few years. This basically unlocks that entire ecosystem. So we expect a stampede of banks, institutional investors, enterprises going in. Consumers have already adopted. We've got some like 50 or 60 million Americans with crypto, but we expect to see big engagement here, and I'm going to expect to see a lot of announcements, especially around enterprises buying Ether for their treasuries.
A few really interesting things I want to kind of touch on there. One is the fact that traditional finance has really been sidelined whilst retail has adopted this technology, or at least got stuck in, and hopefully you guys are on that journey with us. And it's a rare opportunity in history that that's actually the case. Regulations have stopped traditional finance, where the majority of money is, from actually getting involved. They've been doing various things around infrastructure and stuff like this, and kind of preparing to get involved. Now they've got that green light of regulatory clarity. So it's very positive to sort of see that confirmation. He's talking about announcements on the back end of Ethereum. We saw that with what Tom Lee's doing. You're going to see MicroStrategy-esque companies for Ethereum. That's going to trigger an Ethereum run, I think, and a shift towards it as a kind of programmable blockchain that is going to highlight the kind of usage and utility of DLTs, and that's going to really affect the altcoin sector, because DLTs go far beyond Bitcoin in regards to their capabilities, and we're starting to see that, and you get that from the likes of Paul Brody, who of course is global leader of Ernst & Young when it comes to blockchains. Paul Atkins also said pretty much the exact same thing. Then we'll go back to the kind of path to alt season. We'll look at inflows confirming that, talk about the Ethereum chart. Then we've got some other interesting news to get into. Remember, Jerome Powell is speaking today. He might have already spoken by the time you're watching this. Let's dive into this second clip.
Of copying MicroStrategy's technique when it comes to Bitcoin. MicroStrategy was all about Bitcoin and owning that asset. There are a lot of new firms that are doing the same thing with Ethereum now. They want to be the MicroStrategy of the Ethereum realm. We've had a couple of companies that have come on this program and talked about doing that, and I know of several others as well. How do you feel about that? How do you watch it? Some of them use leverage, some of them may not. But what do you think about an area that's seen some pretty big volatility, but also some pretty big gains?
Yeah, well, so similar to Bitcoin, I mean, the SEC has stated informally more than formally that Ether is not a security, and so, but obviously the ETH blockchain is very key component for a lot of other digital currencies. So, it's up to companies to decide where they want to put their money and what sort of strategy they have. Obviously, not for me to tell them, but I think it's encouraging that these sorts of digital assets are being embraced by the marketplace, and I think that provides a good future for development and further innovation in this sector.
I mean, we always recap on fundamentally what's happening, but pretty huge in regards to this technology as an asset class, and to kind of recap on that chart. We're now sort of phase 2. This is a good chart, very simple, but it very much sort of captures the flow of money. There are priors in this. We will see after Ethereum large caps gain from that exposure and altcoins more broadly, and people will, as they always do, forget about how burnt they got in the last bull market and go further and further outside the risk curve. Confirming all of this in regards to Altseason really kicking off, we actually see, and we looked at this yesterday, that Ethereum is essentially rivaling Bitcoin in regards to inflows. That shows an institutional shift, in my opinion. Certainly over the past week, it had a record-breaking week, and the announcements are linked. We have spoke about the Ethereum price. Markets move in 4 phases. We teach this in the Patreon. Do become a Patreon, guys. Now is the perfect time. Look at this for a rally, and we said this very much reminds us of Bitcoin, which we were a part of back here. And of course, Bitcoin went on literally a monstrous rally on the back end of this. I mean, these are literally the same charts, to take the 30 weekly moving average off. And obviously we know the story with Bitcoin. Bitcoin from here went on and did a, 6x, we can say. From that, Ethereum to do a 6x is going to take it in a ridiculous direction. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but can we see $1 trillion Ethereum market cap? I think so. And I personally think other altcoins, which is why we're reviewing this, are going to outperform Ethereum, but Ethereum is going to kind of permission and is a great sign in regards to Altseason and it currently being underway. And we're getting that technically in regards to the structure that we're looking at on the chart. We're getting that fundamentally. We're also getting that as far as data is concerned in regards to inflows and things such as this. So it's important for me to remind people that Jerome Powell is speaking today. He'll be speaking later on today, certainly after this update goes live. So some of you may have seen that. On the topic of Jerome Powell, Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary, said today on CNBC interview, I called for a review of the Federal Reserve. It is my belief that the central bank should conduct an extensive or exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. Significant mission creep and institutional growth have taken the Fed into areas that potentially jeopardize the independence of its core monetary policy mission. As I have said many times, the Fed's conduct of monetary policy is a jewel box that should be walled off to prevent its or preserve its independence. This independence is a cornerstone of continued US growth and economic stability. So we've got people calling for reserves of the Fed. They're talking about losses and things like this, or an internal review. This is from the America's Bankers Association, and other banking groups are urging Congress and the OCC, the Comptroller of Currency in America, to pause trusted charter approvals for crypto firms like Fidelity and Ripple, warning these could bypass key fiduciary standards and requirements to the great public. There is, of course, going to be a bit of a pushback. Like I say, today you do have Jerome Powell speaking. We've got Bailey speaking as well. He's already spoken. On the topic of that, UK data not coming in so hot, but we don't want to dwell on that. We want to stick to the positives of this video, and that is that Ethereum and what we're seeing is very encouraging more broadly for altcoins across the board. And we're starting to move out of really that kind of phase 1 into phase 2. Bitcoin has really been the star of the show. I think if you look technically where altcoins are positioned, Total 2 as a whole is about to break out into new all-time highs and go on a price discovery adventure. And we've got total 2, it's everything excluding Bitcoin, going to about 6.3 trillion. It's probably 1.6 today, something like that. So that's a great game. Ethereum obviously makes up a large part of that, but more broadly, the altcoin sector is going to appreciate. And when you look technically at altcoins, they look fantastic. When it walks, talks, and quacks like a duck, ladies and gentlemen, it is a duck. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Hope you enjoyed this update as much as I enjoyed presenting it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.